Should we be mad at Neil Olshey for this?
I mean, insert whatever you like here.
Yeah. Well, Neil Olshey went behind the Bucks, and this is Chris Haynes.
Chris Haynes, indeed, is LaMarcus Aldridge.
What? Well, yeah, I said that.
No, you said it was Neil Olshey.
Oh, you said it was Neil Olshey?
Yeah.
Oh, LaMarcus Aldridge with Chris Haynes on Behind the Bucks talked about his relationship with Damian Lillard and potentially reuniting in Portland.
It's the first year I left. He's like, you got to come home. You got to come home. You got to come home. So then, hearing it from him and me going to San Antonio and I actually, experiencing it. At some point, I did try to get back, but Neil, the GM at the time, didn't want me back. Like, I was calling, trying to get back. My agent was calling. He was like, yeah, they don't want you back. So that was confirming how I felt when I left. Like, I feel like Neil really didn't want me back like that. And I feel like he confirmed it when I tried to come back 2 or 3 times throughout my career. And he never let it happen. And I even tried to go back at the end one last time. I was like, man, like, can I come back 1 year and retire as a trailblazer? And they wouldn't do it.
Uh-oh. Should we be mad at Neil Olshey that, assuming what LaMarcus was saying, starting in 2016-17 season, LaMarcus Aldridge attempted to weasel his way back to Portland from San Antonio. By the way, he was an all-star twice after that season.
Yeah, LaMarcus is still really good.
And Neil Olshey said no.
Yeah, this is look, LaMarcus did not comport himself that well on the way out. After that Memphis series, he flew home by himself on his own plane. He had put his house up for sale in January. He was gone. Everybody knew he was gone. And Neil pitched that he was staying because he made LaMarcus say, yeah, I want to be a Trailblazer for life. Now, LaMarcus
when he didn't sign the extension in the offseason prior to his final year in Portland.
Yeah, look, LaMarcus did some things wrong down the stretch, and he, much like every other young player approaching their prime, in their prime, when another young guy comes in and takes the spotlight, they feel a certain kind of way because you have a certain kind of ego. Dame and LaMarcus have very much since squashed that. And there was and this is where I blame Neil. A general manager's job beyond building a roster is managing those personalities and those egos. That is not something he ever did. Ever. As it pertained to Damian Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge. LaMarcus felt that the organization was prioritizing Damian Lillard and pushing him out to the side, and he never did anything to tamper that down, which led to a spike being driven in, but not only between LaMarcus and the Blazers, but LaMarcus and Dame.
Yeah.
That was never really there. And Dame is said and told me, he's like, I could have handled it better. I could have been more outspoken. And that's where Dame kind of learned how to become a real leader, is like not allowing that kind of thing to ever happen again. And that's why you always heard Dame campaign for everybody to get paid and to stay. There's a quote that Dame had that early in his career, or I should say it was about early in his career, about him being a general manager and how he could never actually do it, because if that were the case, Sasha Pavlovich would have been a Trailblazer for life, because Sasha was Dame's vet when he came in the league, and along with Earl Watson. And like, this stuff, man, you heard about it over and over again that LaMarcus wanted to come back.
Yeah,
I've mentioned it over the years, and it sucks because LaMarcus Aldridge is on the Mount Rushmore of Trailblazers, and you could have gotten him back. The thing that really pisses me off is not letting him come back on a minimum deal and letting him retire as a Trailblazer. Well, that pisses me off.
That does. But, I feel like there were several years after, and if LaMarcus is sitting there and saying, like, I tried to come back, look, I understand, because we don't know what the capital that San Antonio would have been asking for to get LaMarcus Aldridge back to Portland.
Yeah, it would have cost assets.
That would have been, and it would have been substantial,
because LaMarcus signed that massive deal. He was a max player,
and so you have to match contracts.
Mm-hmm.
You would have had to part with a lot, and there is a part of me that goes, yeah, well, I mean, I understand from the Blazers side of it, because of the fact that they would have had to give up nothing to keep in assets to keep LaMarcus Aldridge other than cap space that they already had earmarked for LaMarcus Aldridge, right? And so I understand there is a part of that, but there were a few years where you were going, the Blazers are not good enough right now.
No.
And at that point, that is where the love affair with CJ McCollum went too far, and they needed to make a big change, and there was somebody that could have helped that they said no to. And that is where you go, I don't totally hate the move for O'Shea not to trade back for LaMarcus, but at the same time, there came initially, but there came a point where you knew how limited that roster was and that it could not get over the hump, and they still did nothing about it.
Yeah, and it's another player along with Jimmy Butler, along with Paul George, along with James Harden, and there was the talks of like Blake Griffin before he got dealt to Detroit, like those kind of things that all came up that, you know, never came to fruition. And that was always my biggest gripe with Neil. And I said this on the postgame show the other day. I had my own personal beefs with Neil, but all of my frustrations with him were his unwillingness and lack of aggression to part with CJ McCollum, to make a deal of consequence.
Or because he just brought in a bunch of guys that he loved. Because if you're thinking about it, right, what would it have taken to get LaMarcus Aldridge out of San Antonio? Maybe CJ.
It would have required CJ. Right? That was the only salary that they had.
Or it would have taken Al-Farouq Aminu, who Neil O'Shea absolutely loved because he identified him in L.A. with the Clippers, and then
53 wins at the 4.
And then you're also looking at, you probably would have taken, I don't know, Evan Turner or Zach Collins, because that would have been right around the time that Zach Collins was drafted to Portland, and we know that he loved both those guys. You put those two together and you send him, you probably do get LaMarcus Aldridge.
Where did Zach Collins end up?
San Antonio. They loved him.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. So it is like, it could have been done, and it could have been done where it would have made sense for both sides to do, and it would have improved the Blazers dramatically. And it didn't happen. And that pisses me off. And that is like the slippery slope of where the Blazers are right now, is that because that happened with Neil O'Shea,
it's like I don't
blame Blazer fans one bit for saying, don't do this again to us.
But you're not a team anywhere close to that team.
Well, I understand that, but that gives you further reason not to fall in love with these guys who play really hard, and they're looking really good at the end of the season.
You're so early in the process. Like the thing, and this isn't like carrying water for the organization. I would have said this during the Dame era as well. You start pushing chips in when you know what you have, and the Blazers knew what they had.
Well, no, and that's why I'm saying right now, everybody should be available.
100%. As it pertains to the LaMarcus thing, it wouldn't have made a big deal in the grand scheme of things as far as bringing him back at the tail end of his career. But I hate that they wouldn't even bring him back and let him retire as a Blazer. I despise that. That pisses me off to no end.
That sounds about on brand.
It's just that's the kind of stuff, man. Like, and look, in the grand scheme of things, it does not matter as far as the wins and losses, and it probably doesn't change anything as far as like how an organization is looked at, but it does to an extent, because if you're talking about one of your all-time greats, and that's what LaMarcus is. LaMarcus is an all-time great for the Trailblazers, and you didn't, when the opportunity was there to do it for nothing, and you didn't do it. You did it for Carmelo freaking Anthony.
Yeah,
but you wouldn't do it for one of your own. That's nasty work.
Well, that's the thing, is that
that's nasty work.
The O'Shea regime never viewed him as one of his own. And look, Paul Allen probably played a big role in this too, because he was furious at the way that LaMarcus Aldridge handled his departure from Portland. And remember, he was still alive during this time. I think Paul Allen and Neil O'Shea both played a massive role in this.
And look, Paul Allen and Brandon Roy did not end on good terms. It took a long time because of Brandon coming back from the medical retirement and costing Paul Allen, millions of dollars. And it had less to do with the money. And it was more, the issue was about violating like the handshake agreement.
Right.
That's what that was about. And like, that's the kind of stuff that irked Paul. That was the stuff that would send, that was the stuff that made him fiery.
He was a cutthroat businessman.
Yes.
But he was also a principled man as well.
And if you broke those things, that was a bridge that would be nuked.
Yeah. Oh man, that makes me mad.
The flip side of this is LaMarcus Aldridge earned the right to go to the San Antonio Spurs
He sure did.
because he went through 9 years and played out his contract.
He sure
I will
did.
say that about any single player that ever goes to free agency, they've earned that.